Okay, so now you're back. Next thing you want to take a look at when it comes to examining historical images is establishing a location. Let's pretend you're taking your EOC and there's a question about the location of this stamp. This stamp probably circulated where and during what century? That's the question. This stamp probably circulated where and during what century? Well, we got to have an idea of location, right? Because if we have an idea of location, we could probably figure out the century too in which it circulated. So let's take a look at this. What do we have here? We have three things that stand out right away. We have one person on the right, one person on the left, and we've got some writing in the bottom left-hand corner. From our historical studies, we know the guy on the right is Chairman Mao. Okay, we know the guy on the left, Joseph Stalin. We know Mao represented China. We know Stalin represented the USSR, the former USSR, or now Russia. The writing down in the bottom, we have two people here, one from China, one from Russia, USSR. The writing in the bottom left-hand corner, what country do you think that belongs to? Well, it's not Russian. Okay, it's not Russian. It's Chinese. Okay, or Mandarin, or probably some dialect thereof. I don't know. I can't read it. But the idea is this: we were able to look at three things in this image to get an idea about this stamp. Okay, we got Chairman Mao on the right, we've got Stalin on the left, and we've got writing and some Chinese variation of Mandarin, or some variation of Mandarin. So this is a stamp more than likely that circulated around in China. So we know that this stamp circulated around in China. So we got that part. Now, what time period did this stamp probably circulate around in? Well, it's going to have to be somewhere between the lifespan of Chairman Mao and Joseph Stalin. So it's going to be during the time in China that Mao was in power, more than likely, because the two of these people, they did get together and they did talk. This stamp obviously illustrates that. Chances are they weren't talking about football. They were probably talking about communism. And oftentimes Mao would go to Stalin to get an idea on how to make make China, communist China, as great as the USSR as far as communism goes. So this stamp probably illustrates one of those meetings. So we know that it takes place somewhere in the 20th century. It's probably somewhere in the middle of the 20th century, as opposed to the end of Mao's life. So let's keep that in mind as well. So we were able to look at the stamp, and we were able to figure out the location of the origin of this stamp, because we looked at the two people, we examined them. We saw Chairman Mao on one side, we saw Joseph Stalin on the left. We saw the writing in Mandarin, or like I said, some variation of Maryland, some dialect. And we were able to put it into a point in history, middle 20th century, when these two leaders of these countries met and talked about communism. Okay, so that's how you do it. It's literally an investigative practice. You are you are a detective. You're looking at something and you're examining every little detail and trying to see where all the pieces fit together. This stamp, all the pieces fit together for the question. Now, sometimes on the EOC, they'll give you a location. Sometimes they won't. So if they don't give you a location, you got to come up with it. You got to use those context clues, and you got to examine the image for what it's worth to get an idea, like we said. So if the question asked, where was the location of where did this stamp originate, what location, and during what time period, we were very capable of figuring out, just with basic knowledge of history, knowing Mao on the right and Stalin on the left, and knowing a little bit about communism, that this stamp was probably circulating in China during the middle of the 20th century. So then we would look for our answers for anything related to that, and then we would call it a day. So that's why that's an important reason why location, examining an image for the location or the origin, the point of origin, is very, very important. Definitely something you want to keep in mind. So the next thing we're going to go over is examining the people. We did a little bit of that in this image. We're going to do some more of that in the next.